Good morning, afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. This dirty trucker, dirty trucking. Um, you aware the issues with Huntington Bank right now? I'm in the negative $200 and something dollars because they claim they gave me a temporary provision for 305.38 for a transaction I disputed on February 21, and I didn't because that was a valid charge. And then all of a sudden, I go on my account and see there's a provision that popped up for 305.38 that wasn't there. Somebody changed something on the account to make it look like they gave me a provision. And I'm tired of reporting this shit. And I'm tired of telling the story when people are trying to make it look like I'm tripping. And then they go around and try to cover their tracks for what they're doing. I went to the ATM directly in Southwest Detroit and deposited the money in the bank. Now, I'm sitting in the car. I already knew I had $300 in my account. $300 of my money. It wasn't a provision for anything. It was provision for my money. It wasn't a provision. It was my money. There was no provision of anything on my account. The only 305.38 that I was waiting for was from that double transaction, which would have been on the 18th. So what somebody at the bank has tried to do to attempt to steal money is make it look like that they gave me a provision for 305.38 on a charge that I didn't dispute. And it has overdrawn my account. And if I pay that money, somebody will be getting 305.38 because I had like $42 in my account. And I went to go on the account to start catching up the standby cash. And that's when I noticed I was in the negative. But they took 305.30 out of my account, and that's why I'm in the negative. So if I pay that money, whoever set this up is going to get $305. And I believe they did it to get the money back that they let Hertz rental car take that they weren't supposed to take. The 301.14. I think this was somebody's at the bank attempt to get that money back that they let Hertz rental car send in an invoice that was backdated. And I'm going to tell you the story on it's backdated. But it don't matter what date was on invoice. They sent in an invoice from September and tried to get money, claiming they didn't receive the payment for the car from back in September. And that's a lie. Because ever since this shit has been going, and ever since that first time it happened, I've been making sure and ensuring that they got their money. And I've been watching my account to see when their money come out, when they do that funny ass bullshit. Like dropping off the charge. So, the receipt was backdated. Now, the body of the receipt was backdated on that 301.14. They sent me an email and took money out of my account trying to collect from the month of September. But they put the previous year date on there. They put the date of January. I think it was January 27th, I think it was. I said that was that came out, the 27th. January 27th. They dated the receipt January 27th to make the bank think it was a new charge. But it wasn't. The body of the receipt, they were trying to collect money from the week of September, claiming that they didn't get that money. And that's when I spoke to the bank dispute department, and she revealed to me that the transaction number didn't match the original transaction number when that amount came in back in September. So the bank had gave me the money and then took it back, talking about they closed the account, it's blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. But no, they had closed the account before giving me the money back. But they mixing up these stories when they talk to me. Because I told you, I made a video about it. I got into a heated dispute with the dispute resolution team when I called from the owner travel center, sit down in their lot, wondering why I haven't heard from the bank about getting it approved or hadn't received my provision for the 301-14 while they investigate. That's what she told me. They had closed the account. Keep in mind the order of operations here, because when I get on the phone with them, they tell me something different. They had closed the dispute without giving me my provision or without contacted me. When I went into the branch on Jefferson, he told me when he wrote the dispute up, and I distinctly told him, this is money they're trying to get out the bank from September. And at the time, I didn't notice they had dated they had dated the invoice in January. This is from September. They dated the invoice January, trying to get money from September. See, this is why they backdate those receipts. This is why they be sending those backdated receipts. Because periodically, they just pick a month and then send in a charge to your account, acting like they didn't receive the money. And this is why they shouldn't be allowed to backdate the receipts. And I don't know why they're sending backdated receipts when you make a current charge. So I'm going to get into that. I just wanted to rehash that 301, that they had closed the account. I spoke to the dispute resolution team. She told me they closed it because it was a conflict of something. Something she said. Shit sounded like what happened at Warren Truck Plant when I went to see that psychiatrist. There was a conflict of interest. It was something that didn't make sense or something she said, so they closed it. And then she told me she saw what she seen the charge that came out, and she said what she do see is that it came in under a different transaction number. And I said, well, I've been waiting on the bank to ask me for proof. I had a receipt for that week showing it was paid. This is the receipt they give me showing it was paid. So if I have that receipt, that means it was paid that week. Whether you send in a backdated receipt or not, that is a backdated receipt of that week showing the car was paid. So that's how they got into the account and got the 301-14. So when I sent her the receipt, she thought I was talking about, they gave me a provision while they investigated. Then they turned around and took the money back out of the account. Because when I called to find out why they took the money back out of the account, they claimed one of the bank representatives that was supposed to be investigating claimed they didn't see where I paid the 301-14. Now they didn't see where I paid the 301-14. Are you following me? Now the bank saying they didn't see where I paid the 301-14. They didn't see it. This is the lie they're telling. Now, remind you, the initial conversation was with a supervisor of the dispute resolution team. She is over all the workers there, the representatives that answer the phone bank representatives. She is over them. She saw the money was paid. She saw where the transaction came out my account. She saw that. I have a printed transaction list of where it came out my account. She saw that. So tell me why the bank would turn around and take that money out after I done gave them proof of the receipt. Proof. The receipt is dated the week that money supposed to came out. If I have the receipt, the money came out. Because I've been looking into how they've been stealing. This is very clever. So I provided her the receipt. And what she saw said didn't match. Because the bank attaches their bank numbers to these transactions when they come in. And she said when it was sent in, because she kept asking me, do you see some 600 number on your receipt? I said, no. She said, what I do notice is that when it came back in, it's not the same number. And we allow the merchant 45 days to collect the funds. After that, You can't get. That's her own words. In so many words, not exact words. Paraphrasing what she said. They can't get it. I said, so why was they able to get this money? I know why. Because they dated the invoice January. And see, the bank don't have the body of the invoice. All they see is a transaction coming in January, and they thought they were supposed to pay it out of my account, so they let it come out of my account. But when I showed them the receipt, they see this is money that they tried to collect on well beyond their 45-day limit for the merchant to collect their funds. And I don't know why any merchant wouldn't get their money immediately at this day and age of 2025. I don't know any merchant that does not get their money immediately. Immediately. When you make a debit card charge, it's usually posted with the next day within 2 days. But this merchant didn't do it. This merchant pulled a scam. Waited months later. Let me see. At that time in January, September, October, November, January. That was almost 4 months back. They waited almost 4 months back to send in an invoice to my email and get that money out of my account. That's scam. That's a scam. That's a scam. Which leads me to what's happening now. I'm trying to figure out, why are they sending these? What is the purpose of sending a backdated receipt to a customer if they go in there and do a current charge for the rental car? Why don't you give them a receipt for being in there that day for the rental charges for that day and 7 days forward? They don't do that. So, my claim that they stole that money on 30114 is valid because I had a receipt to prove it, and they went in the account when they weren't supposed to. They attempted to steal that money. So I believe this is the bank's way of recompensating their self for the 30114 that they mistakenly let them get out of my account when they weren't supposed to, because the processing people did not pay attention that their transaction came in under a different number. So I don't know the process on there. They're processing the transaction with those numbers. I don't know the process on that. But all I know, somebody didn't catch that they were stealing. So they gave me the 301 back in my account. But that could be still a provision. They could turn around and talk about taking that back. You're just taking money out of me. So I believe the 30538 is the bank's way of trying to get back the 30114 that they let Hertz take, and they were in the wrong for it. It was all the bank's fault. They were wrong. I believe this is the bank's way of trying to recoup that money by somebody going in my account and changing in a transaction and making it look like you gave me a provision for 30538. And they always doing this shit months back. This is April, March. What is this? March, January, February, March, April. This is April. They always doing this shit months back. You gonna pop up. They always go back in your ledger of transactions and do this shit. You gonna go back to February and pop a provision in there because they know you don't have the transaction. And I bet you, I'm going to look at my transactions that I had the bank printed out. I told you they'd be going in the car. And I told you I found my bank receipt to the new bank with the deposit laying over my cup holder. I'm going to look at my bank transactions that I had the bank print out. I had them printed out. Nope, they wouldn't have February on there. I'm going to see if they got February on there. And if they do have February on there, I'm going to see if they changed that particular printout and made it look like there's a provision on there. But I don't think I have February. I'm going to have to, matter of fact, let me look right now. Because then I can tell you why they got away with sneaking that provision on there. because they knew I printed out my bank transactions. And if my transactions don't go up to February, let me see. Nope. December. Nope. Goes up to January. When they went in the car and went through these transactions, these are my debit card transactions to prove that the 301 came out of my account. They went in the car to make sure I didn't have a printout for February. And because they saw the transaction was from the end of January back to September, now they can pull their scam. I don't have a printout for February. So now you can go ahead and post to my account a provision for 305.38 and make it look like you gave me a provision. Because you see, I pulled the bank records from January 27th back to September, the time of that transaction. So this is how they're pulling their scam. And I'm catching you every time. And they need to stop playing with me. I know what you did. You went in this car. You went through my purse because I have a tool that you use with tires in my purse. It wasn't opened. It was opened when I reached in there. I was wondering why I was filling it out the pack. And then I've changed purses. The plastic top to where it was sealed in, the plastic piece is over in the new purse. Now, if I had opened it, I had my old purse, and the plastic piece would be in the old purse. It's in the new purse. I changed purses. I didn't open it because I saw I didn't need to use it, and I was going to return it back to the truck stop. But I said, no, well, let me keep it. Let me keep it. It's in the purse, open. And people were coming around me during that time that I discovered it open, saying shit like, what is that? What's that? What's that? You going in my purse. But what they went in their purse for is to look at the printout of the transactions of my bank and what they were dated from. That's kind of a coincidence, don't you think? That I got printouts from my transactions from 1/30, the end of January, all the way back to September. And let me make sure I don't have any piece of February in here. December, that's 10, 1, 128, 128. Nope, I don't have any February printouts in here. There's no February. So, printouts from 128 back to September to prove that that payment was made. And I actually had the receipt for it. For the 301.14. So this is the scam. They wait months to when you forgot. And they know you're not scrolling back to past transactions unless you just happen to be looking for something. You're not looking at past transactions. So the scam is involving the months of past transactions. That is when they go in and implement their theft. They're going past transactions where they think you forgot about, you're no longer paying attention to. All of a sudden, they're requesting money or taking money, and it's dealing with past transactions. And here it is, happened again. Huntington Bank mysteriously sends me a letter about the dispute of charge on 221 that I didn't dispute, telling me I need to talk to them by April 2nd or they're going to conclude their investigation. It's a scam. Somebody is stealing money, and you think I'm stupid. You went in my purse, and you saw that those printed transactions are dated from 1/28 back to the month of September of 2024. All of a sudden, you sent me this letter about a dispute of a charge on 2/21 of February. And telling me I got a provision of 305.38. I didn't know I had a 305.38 provision. It wasn't in the letter. It just said they talked to them that by the second, when they could conclude the investigation of the 30538. If I'd known there was a provision for 30538, then I would have been aware of them having to take a 30538 out my account. Now, wouldn't I? We not stupid. Come on, people. Stop letting these people make us look stupid. I'm telling you what they're doing, and they're making law enforcement, the customer, and everybody I tell this to, they're making us look like we're stupid. I'm telling you this point blank of what they're doing. They will wait. They're doing it with transactions that you no longer look at. And that's where the scam began. That's where the scam began. But they're making me look stupid, but I'm not stupid. I done peep what they're doing. So I don't have a printout for February because I didn't need a printout for February. The dispute of the 30114 was for January 27th. So why would I have a printout for February? I went in the bank immediately on the 28th and had them print out from January 28th back to September. But now, since the bank realized that 30114 was a scam and it was their fault that they got that money out of my account, now you're going to try to recoup the money by posting a provision that was not there and not given to me because I have no knowledge of a provision for 30538, and then send me a letter talking about you investigating it, that I disputed it. And then after I emailed the dispute resolution card team and told them they must have made a mistake, I didn't dispute 221. You take the money back out of my account. And then when I get on the phone and ask why, they tells me I called in and dropped the dispute. I didn't call you. I sent an email responding to your letter. Confused is why I was getting this letter. Not knowing that you had already set up a temporary provision that I didn't even know about. I know about every provision given to me and why it's given. And I am telling you, they never gave me a 30538 provision back in February. It popped up on the account. They changed a transaction to where my balance showed that I had $300. No, she told me, let me tell you, she told me at the time they gave me the provision, I had $62 in my account. No, I didn't. I had $300 something in my account of my money. As a matter of fact, I can prove how much I had in my account at the time. Because when I deposited like $800 something through the ATM in Southwest Detroit. But before I deposited, I sat in a parking lot. And I hope they got a camera. I sat in a parking lot and counted the money and made sure I had what I had before I deposited. I logged into my account and saw my balance. And I added that money plus the money I had in my account. Because I'm depositing my money because it's getting time for rent time. I got to get the rent money paid. So I'm putting this into the bank. I deposited $800 something in the bank. I had already had $300 something in my account. It wasn't a provision. I'm sitting there in the parking lot, logged into my account, and I saw my balance that I had. I wasn't keeping large sums of money in the account no more. I was trying to keep under $300 in my account. I was trying to because they had been stealing. So I let my earnings just add up before I put it into the account. That's why I put in $800 something. I just let it add up. But I know I had $300 of my money in the account. So I don't know why she was telling me I had $62. They rearranges the transactions. And at the new bank, I see the transactions has rearranged. All of them has rearranged. The first two transactions that I did, first three, when I got my debit card, I paid her rental car. I paid the $134 for the gas bill, for the arrangement on the gas bill. And then I went and got gas. There was the first 3 transactions. But when you go on my transaction list now and look, those are not the first 3 transactions. They have rearranged it. My Uber earnings is the transactions, and Hertz rental cars fell off. The gas transaction is on there, but the DTE is moved to the top of the list. DTE transaction moved to the top of the list. It's because of it's because of them in the processing. So if they don't process it, it goes into the next day. So the transactions move around. You never have accurate, you would have to take a picture to catch these people and what I'm talking about. But they're going to go change the picture. So I can't keep the proof. I had the proof for a split second. If they knew I took a picture of the transactions verifying how much I had in my account at the time, they would go in my phone and change the transactions. So now this brings me forward to the new bank. It started already in the new bank. The Hertz rental car $293.30 has fell off. It has fell off out the account. So I contacted the bank to make them aware that this company, I've been having theft with them. That's why I ended up at your bank. So, damn, I've been sitting here all this time moving, and my living room camera just alerted me to motion. How long I've been on this video? 26 motherfucking minutes. And it's just alerted me to motion in the living room. Why is that? Wow. But the bank, back to the bank. The bank says it shows the transaction came in on the debit card side. Because that's why I was puzzled why Huntington said when it fell off, Huntington said they don't have any record of that initial debit card purchase. I said, you got to have record of it. See, I hate that the bank stopped verifying all the transactions, including when they fell off. There was a time back in the day that when you made a transaction, and if the merchant did not finalize it, the bank would show in the ledger in your transaction that it went back into your account. It would shows up as a credit. But the bank stopped doing that. And when the bank stopped doing that, it opened the door for theft. When the bank stopped showing that the money fell off and showing it came back into your account as a credit, reassuring the merchant, the customer, that the merchant didn't finalize the charge, and it went back over to reassuring the customer that your money actually went back in your account. When they stopped doing that, it opened the door for theft. And I remember they used to do that. I'm 54. They talking to me like I'm stupid and brand new to banking and ain't seen or lived and seen shit. I've seen all your crooked theft shit. It's just nobody's catching you at your shit. They used to do that. And if you as old as me, you should remember that banks used to do that. You will see a credit come back to your account for something that you did. And then I would end up calling the bank, and I made a charge for this. Why is the bank account? They didn't finalize the charge. That's when I started learning of that. I'm leery of banks that don't allow you to screenshot your transactions, because those are banks that thefts are happening at, and they're getting away with it. But they used to do that. If you are as old as me, I'm 54, you should remember that banks used to show you if a charge, they would show the initial charge, and they would show it came back as a credit. They used to do that. When I talked to the banks now, they said no, they didn't. If you as old as me, yes, the fuck they did. Don't talk to me like I'm fucking stupid. They like to verbally put out in the atmosphere shit they said they weren't doing when they were. They're verbally putting this shit out. They're just saying it and making people believe it. You believe in lies. Why do you believe people are lying to you? I'm telling you what's going on here. So back to the bank. I'll make this long story short. The transaction that fell off. I contacted the bank to make them aware and alert them to make sure that because they'd be stealing from me. I see the transaction that fell off for $293.30. She shows on the debit card side that the transaction was made, but she said it shows it fell off the same day, which it couldn't have. If it fell off the same day, the money would have been in my account the next day. I would have had more money in my account the next day. It didn't fall off the same day. So I don't know why her records are showing it fell off the same day. It's impossible. Or maybe it fell off the same day. Why would you charge my card? That's the problem. Why would Hertz rental car debit my card on a new contract for this is a brand new contract for $293.30, and then on the same day not finalize the charge? It's because you setting up something. She's saying it's shown they didn't finalize it on the same day. Huh? They setting up something. So I'm gonna wait to see how long it takes for this transaction to come in. Because right now I have more money in my account. And I was able to monitor that my money came back. But on the transaction, it don't show as a credit. It don't show that $293.30 was credited back in my account. And that's the problem. You got to mentally remember who you paid with your debit card. And mentally remember if you all of a sudden got a burst of money back in your account. Because the banks are no longer keeping track of merchants not finalizing charge. It showed pending and then it fell off. Once it shows pending and falling off, means it didn't finalize. It means it didn't come out your account. But it did come out your account because it was subtracted from your balance. It did come out your account. It just didn't post as finalizing to your account. See, they like to confuse people on that. When that charge was made to my debit card, when I looked at my balance showed that transaction coming out of my account. So that money did come out my account. So don't tell me it did not come out my account. They tell you you weren't charged for it. Yes, you were. That initial charge subtracted that money from your balance. And if people would listen to me and understand what the fuck I'm telling you, this is the biggest scam I've ever seen. Billions of dollars probably being stolen. Getting rich off of ripping off your own fucking customers. And ain't nobody catching this shit. And I'm telling you how it's being done. If you make an initial debit card charge, debit cards take that money out. They subtract that money out your account immediately. The only way it's not subtracted out immediately, you do a charge as credit. As credit. That's when you don't notice it immediately. You do it as credit. But mine is debit. Automatic. It comes out. But I'm going to see if it start doing something different because I'm making this video. Because they like to watch my videos and see if I can give them information to get them out of their scam that they doing. To help them. They try to use my videos because they know I'm super highly intelligent. I monitors money like a hawk, especially my money. I monitor money like a hawk. They listens to my video to try to see if I can say something to help them pull off their scam even further to make me look like I didn't understand something or this wasn't a scam. It's a scam, I'm telling you. If you debit your card, that money is subtracted from your balance. I don't know why the bank tell you the money didn't come out. Because initially, when you debited the card, the money initially did come out. Now, when it falls off and go back in your account, that's when they can tell me it didn't come out. But initially, when that card was charged, that money came the fuck out. And that's what I wasn't paying attention with at Huntington Bank because I didn't log into my account all the time. That's how they got away with that 3-day spending. So, back to this new bank. The money has fell off. I've talked to the bank. She told me the charge came in around 10-something, which is not matching up with the time on the receipt because it was 11:30. But there may be another scam in the making there. And she shows the charge fell off the same day. Why would you charge for a car and the transaction fall off the same fucking goddamn day? Why? Why? Don't make sense. Because they're running a scam and they're trying to initiate another scam. So, I've had 2 contracts made. I got a text message from Hertz last week on the 4th. That Friday. Before that Friday. That they weren't going to extend the rental car. Telling me I had reached the maximum weeks. And to take the car back to the location, they weren't going to extend the rental. That's what it said. I'm like, huh? What you mean maximum weeks? They ain't got no maximum weeks. You just rent till you turn it back in. What the fuck? So I called the location. And she told me that because you had the car 6 months, you got to come in and make a new contract. She told me you got to come in and make a new contract. Now, I didn't look back at that text message. I remember now. That's what it said to me. It said you have reached the maximum weeks. You take to return the car to the rental location. We're not going to extend the rental. It was like a harsh text. Harsh message. And remember now, it was the location that said that, you've had the car 6 months. You need to come make a new contract. So I came in, made a new contract with the Huntington Bank card. Car was paid for. $293 even, no change. It's when they start adding this change shit on here, money start coming out the account. $293 even, no problem. Made the new contract, but what I see now that they're doing, they have a new receipt popping up on your initial contract as a barcode. It's a white receipt. It almost looks like the little card they give you to put in the sleeve to keep in the glove compartment to let you know when you rented the car and what date. I've never gotten one of them before. I've never seen that before. It's always the yellow receipt, and the yellow receipt would be for a previous week. And I'm wondering how are you giving me receipts for a previous week? So this is what's going on. Instead of them giving you, after you rent the car, it's time for you to auto renew or go in and pay whatever, however you do, it's auto renew. When you go in, okay, we're going to use the 11th. That's when I just did the new contract. I had to do a new contract with the new debit card because the bank, Huntington Bank, took that money out of my account. And I'm no longer using it. I'm not fooling with that bank anymore. So I go in with my new debit card on the 11th. Now, I check my email for the receipt they sent. I got a receipt for, was it the week of 4 to 11? I got a backdated receipt. 4/11. No, we're not going to use that transaction. I'm going to use the transaction of the very first initial, when I went in on the 4th. When I still had the Huntington Bank account. When I had the Huntington Bank account, I was told to go out there and make a new contract with the car. Okay, went out there, they charged $293 to the card. They sent a receipt dated for the week of, I think it was 3 something. It was the end of the week of March up to the 4th. That's what they sent to my phone when I paid for the car on the 4th. They sent a receipt from the previous week. And then also, they're starting to send some new receipt. Now, it's the white receipt that actually has the current date and time on it. But then they also turn around and send you a receipt from the previous week. And I don't understand that. That's how they can initiate their theft. This new white receipt, I've never seen it before. I got one again with initiating a new contract. This is 2 times I've seen this in my email. And I don't understand why I have a receipt from a previous week given to me on the 11th. But that's what they do. So that's where they get away with talking about this was from last week. when they send that receipt. But they using that last week shit to steal from you. So here's the thing. I don't understand how you can go in there on a specific day. Let's take the 11th, my recent one. Charge the card. The card is paid for from the 11th to the 18th. How can you go in there on the 11th to the 18th? And then they end up sending you a receipt from the 4th to the 11th. How do you do that? Now, I got some white receipt now showing that I came in there on the 11th. But they also turned around and sent another receipt from the 4th to the 11th to my phone. So, what it's looking like, they are sending you your previous week when you make the new charge with the receipts. That's what they're doing. If I go in there on the 18th, I'm going to get a receipt for the week of the 11th to the 18th. You follow me? That's what I see they're doing. And they shouldn't be doing. Because like now, if I wanted to prove, I'm talking about before these new white receipts started showing up on the account. We want to go back in March. Let's say in March, if I wanted to prove that I made a payment on a Friday in March, I wouldn't have the receipt for it. You want to know why? Because when I come in and make that payment, they're going to send me a receipt for the week prior. So if I wanted to prove to the bank that they did make that charge and what happened wasn't on the bank, I wouldn't have any proof. Because they are sending receipts from the previous week. And I don't understand why they have the need to do that. Because they are letting the charges fall off. Sometimes they charges is funny. 1 minute that you send a charge in, it comes out in a couple of days. Because I've been complaining about it. But before that, they were taking a long time. They were taking like a week. It'll fall over into the next week before that charge from the previous week come out. But that's how they stealing. Because they're confusing the customer by not immediately getting the funds for the transaction. And then they go back into the account. And the customer in their mind is thinking it's already paid because they debited your card. But you ain't paying attention that the funds fell off. They didn't finalize it. What is the purpose of not finalizing a charge? It's to steal. Nobody in 2025 is not finalizing their charges immediately, but Hertz Rental Car. They tell you this story about the money they got us for last week. You're not going to tell me the money that I just came in there and paid. I'm telling you about the current date. You're going to tell me this is for last week. No, it's not. I don't understand how you're able to do that. I came in there, but now with these new white receipts, it's showing what I'm talking about. I came in there on the 4th and had to renew a contract. That's when I'm still with Huntington. That was my last transaction with Huntington. Renew a contract. They sent this white receipt showing that I came in there on the 4th and that it was extended from the 4th to the 11th. Then turned around and sent this other receipt with the charge when the car was 305.38, 53 or whatever it was. They send that receipt along with the white receipt. So when you going into Hertz and you looking for them to email you that you paid on this day for this week forward, after the initial contract has been made, you're not going to get that receipt. They're going to send you the receipt for the previous week. And that's how they've been stealing. Because they will wait months later, like they did. They would put a current date on this invoice and send it over to the bank and try to collect for a week that they done picked Mine was the week of in September they did, and try to collect money from you. That's what they've been doing. They should not be allowed. If I go in there with a debit card and pay for a week from 11 to 18, I need a receipt coming to my email showing that I paid on today for the week to 11 to 18. But they're not doing that. You want to know why? They can't give you the receipt because they didn't finalize the charge. They're not finalizing the charge. And when they're not finalizing the charge, it allows them to send you a backdated receipt when you have to go in the next week to pay. Because they're not finalizing the charge. And because they're not finalizing the charge, and it's showing a back week, that's how they get away with this story. When they send they just pick a week and send in an invoice and claim they didn't get paid. It's all because they sending you, after that initial contract, they are sending you invoices for the previous week. So what I'm estimating is that out of all their customers, they have been collecting an additional week of money off of them for their rental car. That's the scam. Now, if you don't understand that, and you don't understand how I explained it, and you can't figure it out, then maybe you shouldn't be investigating shit. Dirty Trucking, and I got the 46 minutes, just a long one. Peace out.